Looking to improve your life, brush up on your personal growth techniques? You are in the right place. Welcome to Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Life's Little Lessons. Today, I have a Christina Aldan that's going to be on our show today. She is from a company called LG Designs, and she's going to be talking to us a lot about advertising. She's a digital advertising consultant. She's a speaker, even a TEDx speaker, and she's also a trainer. So today, welcome, Christina. Christina, welcome to the show today.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy for you to be here as well. And this is actually our first time that we've actually been talking to each other because we've just been communicating a little bit through LinkedIn. So this is our first time for us actually getting to know each other. And I really like this because sometimes I've had people on the show that I've known for years and I take things for granted, but it's always great to have somebody I do not know on the show because it means it's very fresh and at least for myself. So Christina, thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, it's great. And, I love LinkedIn too. Social media can be so good. I've made some of the best relationships on just random LinkedIn connections. So it's really cool. As a digital advertising consultant, I can definitely appreciate the value in that.
Okay. Well, Christina, could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what it is that you do, and why is it that you do it?
Yeah, I am a speaker, a trainer, and consultant. Like you said, I started freelancing in websites, and it's really weird because I was never a computer girl. I was a plant geek long before I was a computer geek. And my degree is in ecology and environmental sciences from Michigan Tech. I thought for sure that I was going to run around in the rainforest and play with trees and plants for a long time. But as it turned out, here I am. And, 12 years later, I just came up on my anniversary. And these days, instead of doing just websites, my freelancing had eventually evolved into branding and graphic design as well. People would come to me and they would say, "Hey, Christina, I need a website." And I say, "That's great. Let's do a website. Awesome. What are we doing?" And they say, "Well, I want a red website." Okay, great. Red website. Got it. Send me your business card. Send me copies of previous things that you've tried, right? And they'd send me their business card and it would be green, and they'd send me flyers and they would be blue, and they'd send me something else and it would be, okay, all right, you know what, let's just take it back to the basics. Let's just think about your overall branding message and what you're really trying to communicate. Because I used to initially just build websites. People would say, "I need a website," and I just go build it. Okay, fine, there it is. And they come back and they say, "No, the website's not working." And I say, "What do you mean? I built it." And they'd be like, "Well, I'm not getting more clients." "Oh, you need more clients." That's a whole different thing, right? And so I learned to kind of shift my business model to incorporate more and more things, social media, press, things like that. And as it turns out, here I am. I've been independent now. I don't think I've worked for another person, a W-2, it's probably been about 9 years or something, when I first got maybe a little less, but it's fantastic. I love being my own boss. And I love these days, people call me more to speak about emotional intelligence and communication and entrepreneurship, especially female entrepreneurship. I work a lot in the tech space and I speak at a lot of tech conferences. But these days, it's been a lot more training. It's been a lot more speaking about just how to get along with people in the workplace, really.
Okay, so you mean like how employees can better interrelate with each other, so managers would hire you, or you talk about entrepreneurs and how they deal with other entrepreneurs?
I work in a couple different ways. So I work one-on-one with entrepreneurs, and I also work in companies. So for example, Microsoft just did their 5 national MVP events, and I was invited to speak at 4 of them. And so I did my emotional intelligence training there, and we talked about how to get along with each other. We talked about how to understand your own sense of self so you can better understand others. We talk about a lot of times specific strategies that you can start implementing right away, just small tweaks. I think that sometimes, when people are having trouble in the workplace, oftentimes it is like a team thing. Maybe you're a manager or you're a team lead and you're having an issue with your team leader. Or sometimes there can be a person on the team that's kind of poisoning the well, if you will, right? Sometimes this comes from the top down, from management. If they don't have specific processes for resolution, or maybe the manager who's in place. We see this a lot in my industry, in the tech industry. They take excellent programmers and then they are slowly moved up in the ranks. And, programmers don't necessarily, just because you're great at coding doesn't mean you're great at managing people. And so we see these kinds of dynamics where most of us, we don't have the type of training or communication skills. We're not taught them. Can you imagine like going to school, you're in high school and you're like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, going to my next class. I'm late for empathy. I got to run. We're not taught those things. So we're seeing companies like Microsoft. We're seeing these, even in startup communities, where it's great when there's 5, 6, 7, 8 of you and you're all buddies and you've built something cool that you're passionate about and you've been, in the daily grind. But then what happens when you scale and suddenly you onboard 200 people? How do you maintain that same sense of culture? How do you communicate? And what are your core values that the company is built around? These things are really important, and they're all related to emotional intelligence. So it's interesting because it's almost like a mentorship, just sharing what I've learned in business and how I've evolved and how I've grown. And passing that information down. I'm most certainly not an expert in behavioral psychology, but sharing the things that I've learned and watching people get results almost immediately. I mean, I have some amazing people that I've worked with who are really impressive, and it makes me really happy. It makes me really proud to have the opportunity to work with them and watch them make these shifts in their lives to get better results in their careers.
Okay. So you're helping them not only on the individual level, but you're also as a team level as well.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you've been doing that for, you said 9 years or longer than that?
Well, it's very interesting because things kind of evolve in different ways. And I've always been an intuitive kind of person and follow where my interests and my talents are best utilized. And for me, there came a point in my, like I said, I was freelancing just websites and web design. And then I went on my own and actually got my LLC and really started full-time buckling down and moved more into branding. And as I was doing that, there was a lot of just natural team building and leadership that I was using. I guess that maybe I had learned, and people were asking me, Christina, how are you getting these results? And then I just started sharing them more and more. And then pretty soon that became a mentorship program. And then that became a training program. And that became one-on-one working with people. So it's always kind of evolved. I guess I would have to say maybe over the last 5 years with the training and the mentorship and the leadership stuff. But people don't even call me for SEO anymore. They very rarely call me and say, hey, Christina, what's the best way to manage my Facebook page or my Twitter account or digital advertising stuff? My agency does really well with that stuff. But at the end of the day, people these days, when they call me, it's usually about emotional intelligence and communication and how do I get better results with the relationships in my life. And it's interesting. I mean, you know this, Kevin, when you start working on yourself, when you start working on your own development, whether it's personal or business, it bleeds into all those other areas of your life. Those results start shifting around you in all areas of your life once you set that intention.
Yes, and I do strongly believe in that because I've done a lot of personal growth classes and done a lot of personal development stuff as well. And even if I'm working on myself on an individual level, it does affect my business and vice versa. If I'm working on being, say, hey, I'm going to be more responsive in my business, then I become more responsive in my current relationships, my personal relationships. I mean, it just bleeds over. because it's between it's what's going on in your head, and it doesn't matter if it's business or personal. It's still a shift.
That's right. That's right. I completely agree. And you see it, you see it in your work. When people really make that decision, it's interesting how you start to notice that the universe just kind of keeps nudging you on that right path along the way, and there'll be red flags. Some of us, if you're anything like me and you're stubborn, you ignore some of those red flags and you got to learn the hard way. I've definitely done that. And, I'm happy to share that information with people too. Please avoid my mistakes. There are plenty out there to make on your own. Please avoid mine.
Yeah, and I think we all have big mistakes that we have to learn from. 'Cause I know I made some big mistakes, and I still make mistakes now. I mean, obviously, we're all humans. That's just us. But that's also how we grow. So when we realize that we're making a mistake, and we learn from that mistake.
I agree.
So it sounds like you, because you say you were recently getting your degree in ecology. Is that what you were saying?
That's right. Yeah, I went to school at Michigan Tech University. I had a scholarship for their chemical engineering program, which is very difficult to get accepted into. It is one of the top 20 engineering schools in the country. At least it was then. And I had a scholarship. I was in all those chemical engineering classes. I was in all the advanced classes. And one day, after a few years, I called my mom up and I said, Mom, I'm these 3-hour chemistry labs, and they want these details. If you don't get the perfect measurements for the milliliters, your composition's going to blow up. And then, my sediment wouldn't filter properly. And there were all these details. And I said, Mom, I think I'm going to give up my scholarship and go play out in the forest. I'm tired of being in these labs. And, she supported me. My mom has always been very supportive when I've made these dramatic shifts and changes in my life. And I went off to study ecology. I studied in the rainforest in Australia. I did some volunteer work in the Yucatan and Mexico. I taught island ecology as a guest speaker in the South Pacific. I had a lot of really cool ecology things. I did green building consulting and sold interior finishes and different things. I worked for the Colorado Geological Survey. All those were kind of neat, but what really got me more into computers, even though I nearly flunked computers in college. I took the very, very low level, right? So you're in the ecology class, computer class, right? And I went to my engineering friends and I said, no, guys, I'm studying plants now. I don't do chemical engineering, but I study plants now. Okay, cool. Well, I've got this computer class. It's CS 101. And we're sitting around. I remember this moment. I was sitting with my engineer roommates and I said CS 101, and they all paused and looked at me and they were like, no, you mean CS 201, right? CS classes don't go that low. And I was like, yeah, they do. Raise my hand. Yes, they do. They have a CS 101 class and I'm barely passing it. And so that's why it was really weird that, after college, I had these jobs, Colorado Geological Survey, I had these. But I went and worked for a contract with Federal Highways, with the National Park Service, analyzing road pavement. And it sounds not very exciting at all, but I had this vehicle. It was a custom vehicle built just for analyzing road pavement. We had 26 ultrasonic sensors. We had boom cameras. We had 180-degree cameras. And this was before the GPS was right in your phone, nice and easy and tiny, right? I had to wear a big backpack. This was 18, 19 years ago. Big old backpack with an antenna, a GPS receiver, and we had this big unit to try to triangulate the perfect 3 satellites in order to get at least within a 9-foot radius, right? That had a 3-meter radius. And now think about it. All we have now is just this little pocket phone, and it has perfect location. It blows my mind. But that's what I was doing. And I was driving to national parks all over the country, analyzing the quality of their pavement. And we had 9 computers, all the cords, everything was customized from this company out in Canada. And that's when I kind of started getting into computers a little. And it was interesting because when I could see the practical application, then things made more sense to me. You know, when I was in class and we were doing coding, it didn't quite register. And that's kind of when I made the shift over to computers and started playing with computers a little bit more on the side, and then started building websites for friends and family, and kind of evolved into it. So it's really weird. Like, I don't know many people who go from chemical engineering to ecology to marketing and advertising to, speaking, but here I am.
Well, I think a lot of us have very varied backgrounds. Because I talk even about myself. When I graduated high school, I joined the Navy, and I was on two different ships, and I went from the Navy to go into a machinist mate, where I was working in the engine room, steam propulsion engineering, in my first ship, to AC&R, air conditioning refrigeration, on my second ship, to get out to go to college for physics. Ended up being a math major. With a psychology thing, going to school for grad school in meteorology, to become a computer programmer for like Y2K, to then move to another part of North Carolina to become a college math teacher, beach bartender, stunt performer, and stuntman, as well as a real estate investor, to come out to Vegas to do real estate, to get into personal growth, personal development, and now into business and life coaching. So,
well, and here's the cool thing, this is what I love. I think that, when you have different experience, because even in between jobs, I had different smaller jobs that were, a framer or a server at a Mexican. Here's the cool part. Now that I work with startups, now that I work with entrepreneurs, I know all of those industries, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really cool because it brings this diverse perspective, having those experiences to, any kind of project that I work on. And there's sometimes some information in there that just, like somebody was saying, hey, I have this company, and they're wondering about scaling and what they should do, if they should build on refrigeration or if they should get a refrigerated truck and start delivering. And somehow, I just called it up in my memory, and I knew prices and I knew sizes and I knew this is what, and my friend was like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm taking all that. They started taking notes. Okay, I got my meeting at 2:00. I'm going to go talk to him. So it's interesting the amount of information in there sometimes in your brain that you can kind of pull up and recall.
Well, and that's the great thing is you have such a diverse background. I mean, I could be one of your clients, and you remember you're working in the rainforest. You say, okay, well, I remember doing this and dealing with people that don't speak English, and learning how to communicate with them. So, okay, now can you be creative in your communication skills? Because you learn from that. I mean, I know one example is in my book, Designing Your Own Destiny. My ship was going to China, and I wanted to buy some chopsticks, which I still have. This is back in the 80s, and I still have these chopsticks. In China, I wanted to buy a Chinese flag, I wanted to buy an abacus, and I wanted to buy a T-shirt. Mm-hmm. And the prices were there. I only had so much money. Mm-hmm. And me and this Chinese merchant were negotiating with each other, but neither one of us spoke a single word. Because I didn't speak Chinese, he didn't speak English. So everything was through head gestures, and we bartered completely in head gestures.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So it's like that was, to me, was a big experience about how can you still communicate even though you don't speak.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's really cool. And smiles and hand gestures. There's definitely something to be said about those. I wish there was a quantitative way. Although I have a friend, Jesse Sternshoes, who is brilliant in leadership development, specifically from a background where she does acting and improv. And she's actually working with the Mayo Clinic right now to develop the programs and get the research-based backed information for, how the leadership and the work and the encouragement, emotional intelligence stuff affects our lives. Let's get some quantitative data. So, for example, Kevin, I know that if you and I are walking down the street and we pass each other in the street and we're strangers, as you said, we have only met on LinkedIn before. If we pass by the street and I smile at you, right, your natural response is going to smile at me back. And I know that I've made your day a little tiny better. But how do we quantify that? In the Vegas tech community, you know, we talk about collisions. You know, you heard a big talk about what is the value in that, in connecting with another human being. And really that's what my TED talk was about, right? When I did my TEDx talk, it was, you know, how we're communicating with another person at any given moment. You are choosing to connect with them. Hi, here's a smile, here's a wave, maybe, or you're choosing not to connect with them, head down, you walk right by, maybe there's no waving, there's, you know, even a body language shift depending, right? We're always communicating in some way. And what I'd like to do is just bring that awareness to people so they can understand what are they communicating and how can they communicate better to get better results in whatever that is, your personal, your business. Me specifically, because I teach from experience, you know, it makes sense that I work with female entrepreneurs and startups. So that's kind of my industry.
And you particularly work with female entrepreneurs, and not male entrepreneurs, or is it female more your passion for because you're a female yourself, or is there another reason?
I think because of the way that my messaging is, I attract more females than men. A lot of what I do is about authenticity and about owning your stuff. And women seem to be, in our culture, in our community, much more socialized towards being vulnerable than men, right? We hear that even from young boys as they're, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, right? Or, you know, be a man or man up, or boys don't cry, that kind of stuff. So I tend to attract women and strong men who are willing to be vulnerable and look at their work. Because personal development work, it's hard, it's tough stuff. You know, it's hard to look in the mirror. When we talk about emotional intelligence, it's the 4 steps. And that first one is awareness of self. And looking in the mirror is tough.
And that's kind of funny as you say that, because I probably would have said I would have agreed with you until 2010. In 2010, I took my very first live personal growth class. Because I'd listened to Tony Robbins. I listened to some of the other big names out there at that time. This is like 2009 and before. But in 2010, I took a class here in Las Vegas. I'm not going to mention their name, but I took a class here in Vegas, and it was eye-opening. You know, it's all about being vulnerable. You know, a man can be stronger by being vulnerable than being just closed off and holding it in.
Thank you, Kevin.
And the class that I do, because I do a lot of volunteer staffing for the class, and I've done it like 15, 16 times over the last 7.5 years. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they even say in the class is, because the guys will go up, you know, that have already been through the class that are staffing, guys will go up and will give each other hugs. You know, it's not like, hey, dude, you know, one arm with a pat on the back. It's like, a regular hug. And what they have told me in the past is, you know, for this class is like, as the instructors is, guys do not give other guys hugs on their first day in front of the students. Because the students will probably get freaked out. The men students will get freaked out because they're not used to it.
That's
but to me, it's second nature to me right now. It's like, of course you got to be vulnerable.
You know, and here's the thing, Kevin, when you show up in an authentic, vulnerable way, and it takes more strength and courage to be brave and honest than it does to hide it and, you know, be angry or be tough behind it, whether you're male or female, however you identify it. But I think that when you stand up and you live it, then you give other people permission to live it too. You know, we model leadership. Yeah.
And this is coming from a person that has not taken these classes, but obviously you've done your own personal growth or personal development through, I'm assuming through your own life lessons, or have you taken any formalized classes yourself?
I've taken a lot. You know, I developed chronic pain at the age of 19, and I started seeing a chiropractor at that time. And my pain didn't shift and didn't change until it actually really, really peaked. One time in my, I guess I was about 36 and I had surgery. I had a couple other surgeries. And then only just recently have I found a neurologist who can really help me with my pain. So half of my life, I've lived with chronic pain. And, when you have to manage your emotions and still run a business and still show up and still do life, you learn a lot. And when you see doctor and healer and because I've seen them all, I've been in Okinawa with healers and in Mexico and in Peru and every light color, Reiki, massage, Thai, every diet, nutrition, all of it. You learn a lot about yourself when you go. So I've spent a lot of money with one-on-one coaches, therapists, with everyone. I've done a lot of work. And here's the thing that I've learned, Kevin, as well, is that I don't take advice from people who don't do their own work. Somebody who understands their own demons is going to be able to guide me through my own and in facing my own and dealing with my own. And that's what I always tell my one-on-one coaching clients and mentees. Now, again, I come from coaching from a branding perspective. A lot of that bleeds into other things, but I'm not a therapist and I'm not an emotional behavioral specialist. But I'll tell you what, I've definitely learned a lot in life, and my results show it, and the results of my clients and my mentees show it. So I'm always happy. I'd have to say that that's probably the best part of what I do, is sharing information and learning how other people use those tools so I can learn from them. That's my absolute favorite.
And I agree with you, because back in the 1990s, one of my first mentors was a gentleman by the name of Bill Gould. You may or may not know him, but he was the founder and owner of Equinox International, which was a network marketing company in the late 90s. That was shut down by the FTC in 2000. And he was very adamant about, and in some ways I agree with this, in some ways I don't. But it says you kind of like what you were saying, is you only take advice from people that have the results that you want.
That's right.
He says you don't go to an overweight person to ask them how to lose weight. You don't go to a marriage counselor that's on his 8th marriage. And you don't however, there are people that, like yourself and myself, that have our own life's lessons, our diverse of backgrounds, and a lot of that stuff does transfer from one area to another area. Like you're saying, you're mainly done in branding coaching, but you also want people to be authentic, which is not necessarily branding. It can be somewhat in branding, but it's also about how it could translate to other areas of their life as well.
Always, absolutely. And I talk a lot about empathy. I talk a lot about empathy and integrity, and I think that those two topics, more than anything, once I really buckled down and decided, I really need these shifts in my life, those two things have helped me tremendously, more than I could have ever imagined. And it really doesn't take a Harvard degree in psychology, from an Ivy League school, to understand simply that integrity and empathy are good qualities to have and good values to embody in your life.
Yeah. Empathy, I can definitely agree with you, because you have to understand where that other person emotionally is coming from. So, and you can't displace or put your experiences on them because they have not experienced it. So
that's right. Yeah. And the first part of that too is, understanding your own emotions, which is tough it's tough for me, even with all of the counseling and the coaching and the therapy and the trainings and the conferences and, how many things that I've done and workshops and taught and attended. It's always there. There's always work to be done in learning about ourselves so that we can better understand others.
Well, I'm going to go down a slightly different path now. So we're about halfway through the show right now. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about LG Designs, your company. And I know we talked before the show about some of the projects you're working on. We haven't really mentioned them as of yet, so we'll get into that here in the next few minutes. what I'd like to find out is about with your company, LG Designs, and you are a digital advertising consultant here, is what were some of when you were just starting out your business 9 or so years ago? Because it seems like you were been in the business for 12. I'm assuming you worked for somebody else, and then you started going out on your own. Is that correct?
No, I didn't. I just was freelancing, and then I decided to do it full time. I was freelancing on the side. It was like, well, I get these little side projects, sure, and then I realized, actually, I'm making more money on my side projects than I am working for somebody else. Why would I want to go back? At the time, I was working as a legal assistant in a legal office for in real estate. And I was getting in I needed something creative because I'm a creative person. I've always been a creative kind of person. And at the time I was traveling and moving around a lot, I thought, let's just try websites. It's kind of like watercolor, only on the screen. And I was doing websites. I was freelancing, and I got really, really sick. And it was 7 months. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. Again, I've had, kind of a lifelong journey of who knows what it is. I think maybe it's in your head. So it wasn't new for me, really. But I was always nauseated, and I was feeling it took them 7 months to realize it was my gallbladder. And once I had my surgery, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to go back to work for someone else. And I opened my LLC and just said, all right, doors are open. Let's do this. And I started working for myself. In those first years, I took on anyone and everyone. And it's probably the worst thing you can do. And I had gotten advice, about getting clear and understanding your vision. But, some things you've got to figure out by trial and error. Really good piece of advice from one of my managers when I was working at a high-end steakhouse and hotel in Southern California. He said, you know what? It's okay to make the wrong decision. Just come and tell me and we'll work through it together. Sometimes you have to make the wrong decision to get to the right one. And I think the first few years of me being in business for myself really kind of illustrated that. I didn't know about contracts. I would do anything and everything under the sun. And I was giving because I really wanted to prove myself and over deliver. And then what happened is it got me right out of the gate, established this pattern of me always trying to prove myself and being behind. I felt like, remember now, I had that almost flunked computers in college stigma. So now I'm owning a web design company, and I don't, I had these insecurities. So what I did to fix that, after about a year and a half, what I did to fix that is I thought, you know what? I need some people to help me. I need some more support. And I went on Meetup. I think Meetup is fantastic for finding people who have similar interests and relationships. And I found Girls in Tech Las Vegas. And it was one of the best moves ever, is finding those other women in tech and those female entrepreneurs and those solopreneurs who were in technology, who were going through similar things that I was, who could mentor me and I could mentor them in experiences that I'd had. And we all grew together. I essentially, I knew that I needed a tribe. And that's what I did. I went out and I developed my tribe. Again, my TED Talk is about that. And I've done this more in depth in my leadership trainings whenever I do workshops, where I talk about, if you know that you have a specific weakness or challenge that you're dealing with, then go find people who are strong where you're challenged, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I did. And I found people to help support me and increase my communication. And I'm really glad that I did, because now I'm sharing those tips and those things with my mentees.
Okay. And that's very good that you say that, because I'm a big proponent of Meetup. This is Meetup.com, which is a website. It's not a dating website. Because a lot of people, when they first hear it, they think it's a dating site. It can be a dating site. However, it's a Meetup or Meetup.com is local to all the areas throughout the country. And it's where people post events or of people with similar interests. It could be women in tech for one. It could be a mastermind. It could be Bitcoin. It could be people that drive scooters. It could be anything. And I belong to
cities, all around the world.
cities. Yes. And it's a great way, especially if you're going to be moving to a new town. It's a great way to, number one, get yourself out there. Number two, if you are single, you're looking to date, it's a great way to find somebody of similar interests. If you go and say, hey, we're all scooter riders, now you've got it, or hikers or yoga people. There's so many different things out there. And it's also a great way for people that are entrepreneurs to help build their businesses. One of the meetups I go to on a regular basis is a mastermind. We meet every Saturday morning. And I actually did not find my meetup. They created a Meetup account after I was already going there. However, it's a great way to find other people. I know at least 4 or 5 different Toastmasters that post on there, if you're going to be a public speaker. And there's at least 60 Toastmasters here in Vegas, but 4 or 5 are on Meetup.com. So it's a great way to actually find people of similar interests. So thank you for giving that plug for that website.
Yeah, I love it. It's really helped me. And, showing up at those Girls in Tech meetings, it helped me get better at networking, get better at communication, get better of business operations. And 6 months later, I was co-managing director of the group. Amber Bradley and I ran it for about 3.5 years here in Las Vegas until then business kind of started exploding and she was traveling. So we shut the group down, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think that the main lesson that I've learned from that is, building your tribe and really making sure that you have that support, choosing who you're going to support and choosing who will support you as well.
Well, I'm going to say that what I heard you say earlier in the show, and I've heard this through a number of different guests that I've had on the show, is that you're taking on anybody and everybody that are clients. And you didn't do any kind of weed out process, any kind of other process. And one of the biggest things that I've learned from doing so many of these shows is a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, they're taking on anybody. They're not pre-qualifying them. And then the second thing that they do is, and Christina hasn't mentioned this yet, I'm going to assume she's going to shake her head once I say this, is undercharging your value.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, even undercharging my value, even, later, even as of last year, I've gone through it. There's this constant, for me anyway, and this is my number one challenge, that has been confidence, because I came from poverty and in my mind, I'm always feeling like I'm an insecure girl, or that I sit at the table, Kevin, with very successful people, millionaires, billionaires, innovators, disruptors, who are so inspiring, and they're making amazing changes at the global level. And then there's me, and I get this imposter syndrome sometimes, and even like I said, I definitely struggle with that, and that's why I have taken these last probably 6 months and really just buckled down and focusing on getting over that. I feel like it's the last final thing that's really helping me get to the next level. And I only know that because of the work that I've done in emotional intelligence, the work that I've done with integrity, with empathy, with self-awareness, and taking self-assessments. Really? Because I take these self-assessments and then I compare them to other, and I go, oh, I have these skills. You mean I'm already delivering a $20,000 value? Okay, then I need to start charging $20,000, and we don't know that if you don't have a tribe, if you don't have a mastermind, if you don't have other business owners, if you don't have an accurate self-awareness of yourself and how you are imparting your skills into your community. It's a lot of inside work that needs to be done. And, sometimes the first initial launch of your business, maybe you're not ready for that, but you go along a year and a half, you're not getting the results you want, you're getting clients who are bullies, you're feeling overworked, you're feeling overcommitted, and you're wondering, why am I doing this? Because it's not paying off. It's really good signs, those really good symbols that you've got some personal work to do, and you really need to turn it inward, get introspective, and understand what that block is. For me, there's a block, these self-limiting beliefs of, people who have money are jerks. Oh, well, I don't want to be rich then. I don't want to have money because I don't want to be a jerk. Right. And remember, like, coming from poverty, I always wore secondhand clothes and things like that. So even dressing up and showing up for success and owning it, instead of going, oh, look at those fancy shoes, like that, no, that I'm going to judge that person because, if I had that money, I'd spend it on better things. And so I had these judgments around money that I've really just only started to strongly shed with a vengeance and with a passion in about the last 6 months, about the last year or so, that I've really been digging in and working through almost these core limiting beliefs that I, despite all my years of working through personal development, I'm only touching on now. So, I can always, I just, more than anything, encourage people to really get a strong and accurate picture of their own self-awareness and what they're bringing to the table and what their value is.
And I would take that one step further, because you may read it in all the books, you may have heard all of the stuff, but are you actually implementing it?
It's the embodiment of it, right? You got to try. My life coach says, you can intellectualize this stuff all day long, Christina. You're very smart. That's great. Let it bounce around your head. But until it gets to your heart, until you shift the belief, there's a process, right? You shift the belief and you go, oh yeah, okay, I know. Like, we shouldn't kick babies. Okay. you know that. But until you pause and you think about, how do I actually feel about that? And what would it be like? And you could be like, no, you know what? I'm really fully on board with not kicking babies. Like, I get that. I can feel that. I know why. I know my position. I understand where I'm at with that. And while that may be an extreme example, it's the same process for anything. How do I feel about working with someone who doesn't share my same values in the industry? How do I feel about someone whose products and services maybe don't promote the same things that I promote? Really get into those questions and really kind of ask yourself what that's all about. Once you get to those, then you can try them out. Here, I'm going to try out this theory. Does it actually work? If I'm not going to kick baby. Oh yeah, actually this is okay. This works for me. And here's what happens though. Sometimes if it's something like, I'm not going to hang out with anybody anymore who's a flaker. We're going to get rid of all the flakers in my tribe. And then somebody comes in and they go, hey, you know what? I'm sorry I flaked last time, but really, I mean it this time. I want to hang out, really. That's your moment to try out your theory and say, no, I'm not going to hang out with flakers. I've made this personal commitment to myself, and I'm really going to start honoring my boundaries and embodying my message and really showing people, this is how I value my time. This is how I spend my time. And I'd like the same respect. So, it takes trial and error. Sometimes we're like, well, I really want to hang out with somebody. So we'll hang out. And then what happens? They flake on you. And you're like, oh, see, forget it. I can't do this. We start to bludgeon ourselves, right? What's wrong with me? Why did I make another mistake? That's the part where I think people get kind of hung up. And for me, I think, because I've had to learn so much of the skills and the things that I've learned as a self-actualized woman by trial and error. I don't mind looking dumb. I don't mind making those mistakes. I don't mind fall down. I just keep getting back up again. And those times that I accept flakers into my life become fewer and farther between, until one day I look around in my tribe and I go, hey, look at this. We all showed up. This is great. We're all powerfully, intentionally, authentically here, ready to co-create cool stuff and make a difference in the world. And that is the place that I think everyone should be, whether you're a digital advertising consultant, whether you're a speaker, whether you're a trainer, whether you are, the paper delivery person, whatever those values are and look around at those results and those relationships in your life that you're seeing and kind of examine, is there room for improvement, and where is there room for improvement?
And there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
You're never perfect. So it's how can I keep improving?
Yeah. And that's part of it too. That's also been part of my journey, is that perfection piece, especially when you start out. Now, when I started out, I compared myself to people who'd been in business for 20, 30 years. Now, come on, that's not it's even realistic. While it's great to learn from those people and read about what they do, you still got to forge your own path, and you still have to learn. We don't just come out of the womb and we know how to walk and speak and balance a checkbook. And, there's a learning curve. And again, it comes down to, I think with some people, I didn't get it right the first time or the second time. Guess what? You got to pick yourself up and go back the third, the fourth, the 20th time. Now, maybe if you get to the 100th time and it's still not working, you got some different questions. You're not quite making the right adjustments. But I think always asking yourself those questions and where's the room for improvement, and being willing and open to look stupid while you're improving. That's an important quality to have.
And let me ask you this: when you were first getting started in your business, what kind of fears, what kind of self-imposed fears that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
A lot of things, like I said, the insecurity thing that has just been with me my whole life. That's been with me my whole life, and creating a tribe of supporters as a solution was really big. That was a pivotal decision in my life that has made a tremendous impact in my career and moving me forward. Another fear that I had, and I still have this, because I tell people I'm always teetering on the edge of an epiphany or an anxiety attack. Like, I don't know which it is, but as an entrepreneur, if you're not worried about those two things, probably every 2 weeks I'm ready to throw in the towel, and I'm like, I'm just going to go work for somebody else. I'm just going to go get a job. I want the security of a paycheck. And that fear hasn't gone away. I think that what I've learned, though, is to work with it and go, there it is again. There's my pattern. Things are hard. Things are difficult. Okay, let's just pause. Is everything in place? Yes. All right. I've got a team. I've got this. I've got new clients in the pipeline. I have this project coming. It's just that today things feel a little overwhelming and a little unsettled, and the world isn't exactly how I want it right now. So what I've learned then is just to trust the process, because I have processes in place now that I've developed through trial and error, right? Like I said, I can trust the process and go, you know what, today's tough. We'll start over tomorrow. Don't quite apply to Home Depot yet. Like, don't go put in your application at Starbucks just yet. I think we can work it. Let's just try again tomorrow. And so those two fears, and like I said, I still live with them. I don't know that they exactly ever have gone away from me personally. But I have a lot of great support. I have coaches. I have people who I can go to help me work through those fears, whatever. And if I don't have them, then I also have myself. I have specific strategies that I've learned to manage. Remember, when you're in chronic pain, for me, it was a nervous thing, so my whole left side of my body, some days I'd just be completely wiped out. If you think about it, your nervous system manages everything in your body, your digestion, your muscles, everything. So me being in pain and still managing a business and still managing teams and working with nonprofits and stuff, and having to show up anyway, even when I'd rather be in bed, that has really, really helped me develop those skills.
And I cannot imagine exactly what you were going through. However, in 2014, and basically February through May of 2014 is also when I gave my first talk. Because February 12th was my first talk on stage. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd been a math teacher. I don't count those as talks, even though I'm in front of 30 to 60 people. Yeah. And I was actually going through a severe case of sciatica on my right side, which basically meant it was hard for me to stand up for more than 3 minutes. Right. It was extremely painful to go from standing up to sitting down because it involves pinching the spinal cord, pinching the nerves. And it was, and I mean, I remember my limit of standing up for about 3 months was about 3 minutes.
Sure.
And I'm a real estate agent showing houses.
Right.
Getting in and out of the car was like excruciating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, it's hard to be professional when you want to throat punch somebody and you're like, here, just buy the thing. Let's go. Can you just get, I want to go lay down. Like, I can't even, and that's not really good for business. So,
It's not. But it shows your determination. That's what it is. And one of the things, because we're about to wrap up here, one of the things I wanted to find out from you before we go is, what were, besides the chronic pain, what were some of your early or even possibly current setbacks or challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome those?
A lot of things for me have to deal with, like I said, the perfection thing and wanting to control things. So I had issues delegating, Kevin. I had problems delegating. And remember, I started out doing web design. And as my business grew and evolved, here I was 8-9 years later, still doing my own design and development, but then trying to do speaking, and then trying to manage clients, and then trying to manage sales, and then all the admin stuff. And it was really hard for me to delegate tasks to other people that I could very well do myself, but why would I want to? I should do things that I'm extremely good at, that I excel at. And, web design development wasn't really one of those. While I know how to do it, at that point, 9 years down the road, I was moving into other things. And so my digital advertising agency now pretty much essentially just runs itself. My team's fantastic. I assign account managers and everything's great. But it was hard for me to delegate, even to the point of where my hands were almost not functional, because I was improperly diagnosed as carpal tunnel at the time. But, I'd be there with numb hands, and I still in there at my computer going, oh no, the passion's stronger than the pain, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm going to knock out this website real quickly, and it's just going to be 1 week. And once I delegated, oh my gosh, that was so great. It was such a gift. What took me so long? My hands started healing again, and my pain got lessened. I could take on more clients because then I was managing the sales and the projects and the team, while the team was in there doing the actual work. And it set me up actually to be more of a business owner, to go branch off into my other projects, the Fierce Women Project, the Bring Your Strength training program, and speaking more and training more. And it really left me to do the work that I excel at, rather than in there doing all of the tedious little tasks. So delegating really, really was a big lesson that I needed to overcome. And it was so freeing. Oh my gosh, it made a world of difference once I did it. And then setting up other processes for, the other team members for project management. So things were bottlenecking with me. And once I let go of that control and empowered people with the tools they needed to complete their tasks, it was great, because then I just completed my thing, trusted my team, and they're so awesome. The people I have now, that I hope they never leave. Gosh, it was such a freeing decision for me. And hard to get over. It was that control piece,
And and there's 2 books that I've mentioned on multiple different episodes, and I don't know if you've read them, but in case somebody's only listened to this one specific show, one of the first books I would highly recommend is called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Oh, I love it. Mm-hmm.
And he talks about, there's an acronym that he creates. It's the word DEAL, DEAL, and the first D, the D stands for Delegate. What can you delegate to other people? And that's how you go to scale your business. That's how you go from an 80-hour-a-week business to a 4-hour-a-week business.
Right.
Is who do you delegate all the stuff to? The E stands for eliminate. What can you stop doing because it's no longer functioning? It's no longer needed in your business.
Yeah.
The A is automate. What can you automate? And then the most difficult one that people do is the L, which is liberate. What are you going to do with all your free time?
Yeah.
and then
sleep.
The second book.
Sleep, Kevin. I need sleep.
And the second book I highly recommend anybody read is called E-Myth Revisited.
No, I haven't seen that one.
E-Myth, I think came out in the 70s, but E-Myth Revisited came out in like the 1980s, or excuse me, 1990s. And E is not like email. Does not stand for electronic because, we think about that, but the E stands for entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what Christina just talked about. And it's like, it talks about a fictitious woman. She's a baker and she's a great baker. She works for another company. She makes great pies, great cakes and stuff like that. So she wants to open up her own bakery business. And the book basically says that it made me angry. The first two, you have to get past the first 3 chapters.
Oh, okay.
Because I know for me, the first 3 chapters made me angry.
Uh-huh.
And it basically said that if you're an expert, an expert employee, an excellent baker, the chances of you going into opening a baking business and being successful is lower than if you had no experience whatsoever.
That's right. Absolutely.
And it's because business is broken down to 3 different things. And Christina hinted at this. She didn't say this, but she hinted at this just a moment ago. Business is broken down into the entrepreneur, the manager, and it's broken down into the technician, which is the day worker, the manager, and then the entrepreneur, the business owner.
Yes.
Christina was saying she was getting bogged down to her. She almost had carpal tunnel syndrome in her fingers because she was still trying to run a business as a technician.
Yeah.
But when she hired the technicians and she became the manager, then she freed us more of her time. And now she's already hired project managers to keep control of the technicians. Now she's the entrepreneur. She goes, okay, now I can scale my business. How can I grow my business? What can I do next? And so reading both those books is exactly what Christine just said without really stating it. So for those of you that are out there that are watching this show or listening to this podcast, I highly recommend reading those 2 books. And the third book you might want to look at is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And,
yes, I like that one as well. Mm-hmm.
And he breaks it down into 4 quadrants. It goes from the E in the top left, S in the bottom left, B in the top right, and I in the lower right. And the E stands for the employee, so people that are working for a job. And this is on the left side of these are known as quadrants. Below the E is the S, the self-employed person. In the top right is the B, the business owner, and the I stands for the investor. Most people that are S's, that are self-employed, think that there are B's.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And again, you just said it yourself. Once you delegated all that stuff to other people, now you can actually take vacations. You could go sleep. You can do whatever it is that you're wanting to do, because the business will do just as well without you, because otherwise you're being a bottleneck. You're bottlenecking the entire process.
And I had to set it up that way. I wanted to travel. I knew that I needed to be able to operate my business wherever I had Wi-Fi, and that would be enough, and not constantly, not where people are constantly pinging me or needing, my full attention, where it's one-on-one. I learned that passive income and diversifying your business model and structure is really the best way to go when you're earning income. So that's what I've been working on. And, these days it's great. I love the training, the speaking, the sharing information stuff. And anytime I get to share that information with a corporation, with a conference, or even with individuals, it just makes my day.
Okay. And where do you see yourself in the next 12 to 24 months? So where do you see your future in your business?
Well, it's interesting, Kevin, because I started a book a while ago, and I'd like to finish my book this year. And I did a brief stint in Michigan, so my health kind of went down, and now it's coming back up again. And I'm back in Vegas, and I really, really want to take my health, my physical health to the next level, because quite honestly, I've never felt stronger emotionally and physically. And I feel like now at 41 years old, like I'm really hitting my stride. And I think in 12 to 24 months, I'd like to see myself more fit at the gym now that I'm regaining my health. I'd like to see more training where I can maybe not travel as much. I did 26 conferences this last year. That means I was on a plane every other week. As a new mom and with a family, that was really challenging, especially since we moved across the country, Michigan and to Vegas at that. And so I'd like more time. Like I said, I like to sleep a little more. I'll probably be doing more trainings and conferences here locally on the West Coast and less international. But we'll see. I mean, if I can do one international gig a month, maybe I can manage that. But I think in 12 to 24 months, I'd like some more free time for myself and with my family.
Okay. And as we're about to wrap it up here, are there any last minute words or any tidbits of information that you would want to share with say new entrepreneur?
You know, there are two things that two of my closest mentors really helped me with. And the one thing that I absolutely live by is that experiences are the sum total of who we are, but not of what we can become. And I'm definitely living proof of that as someone who grew up in poverty in the Upper Peninsula against all odds and became an international speaker, business owner. The other one comes from my dear friend Nancy Gabriel, who you may know. She is the owner of Mediation Around the Table here in Las Vegas, one of the best mediation companies in the city. She always reminds me to tell myself the truth in the kindest way possible. I have a habit of telling myself the truth in not a very kind way, right? And so, you know, that just feeds into that insecurity and making myself feel bad. So treating myself gently, with empathy, with kindness, because when we treat ourselves gently, it's how we walk on the earth, right? And that's how we treat others as well. When we can fix that inner dialogue in ourselves and treating ourselves gently and watching ourselves as we grow, as we evolve, as we change, make the mistakes, and then just make sure that you're getting back up. You're picking yourself up. Oh, I didn't quite get the lesson that time, but I'm a little bit closer to nailing it. I'm going to keep trying out this new belief until I fully embody it in my heart, because I know in my head that it's the best course of action. But if I can really, truly embody it in how I live, in how I communicate, in my business relationships, and my personal relationships, that's really the best advice that I can give people, because it's helped me tremendously.
And I would actually even add on to that, and give yourself credit.
Yes.
Because, I mean, one of the things I wanted to mention earlier, and I wasn't able to do it at the time, was when you were saying you were sitting at a table of millionaires, and he's like, oh, who am I? Who am I? And I'm so humbled to be around those people. Right. But do you think that if you were to walk into a Toastmasters meeting and you all go to dinner afterward, that everybody in the Toastmasters says, oh my gosh, you're an international speaker, you've been on a TED Talk, and they all humbled about your greatness.
I know. No, it's fascinating to me whenever it happens, and I'm just honored and kind of curious about, you know, how did this become my life and how lucky I am. You know, I'm the lucky girl, and I believe that we can create our own luck. That's why I'm the lucky girl, and it's always fascinating to me whenever it does happen.
So I just want to give yourself credit, because I know for myself, I'm a 2-time self-published author. I've got training programs also available. However, but I take myself for granted. It's like, well, I'm not doing this, not doing this. Yes. And then people on Facebook says, oh my gosh, Kim, you're doing such a great job. Like,
I know.
Okay. So for those of you that are out there, give yourself some credit as well. I mean, you're doing excellent. Look at yourself, possibly every once in a while, look at yourself from somebody else's eyes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You bet.
Mm-hmm. So, well, Christina, we're going to be departing here in a moment. If some people out there that are wanting to work with you through LG Designs or something like that, how is it that they can get a hold of you? Do you have a website or social media account that they can access you with?
Yeah, I have several. The easiest way to get a hold of me is by phone or text. It's 702-900-3419. And I'm Lucky Girly Girl everywhere on the interweb. So it's LuckyGirlieGirl. I'm a Lucky Girly Girl because we can all create our own luck.
Okay, and so they would just look for you like for that on Facebook or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, Instagram. I tell people I speak all languages. My website, luckygirlygirl.com. Everything's Lucky Girly Girl. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Lucky Girly Girl. Okay, so that's again Lucky, Lucky, Girly, Girlie, and then Girl, Girl. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, I want to say thank you, Christina, for being on the show here. This has been a true treasure having you here. This is you've been a great inspiration. So I know I'm going to have a great time re-listening to this broadcast. As when I'm doing the editing and creating the social media campaigns for it. But I also feel that the people out there that are going to be listening to this show will gain a lot from you. And so I want to say thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it.
So for those of you that are listening to the show, please leave a comment below. If this is on YouTube, definitely leave a comment, or on kevinadunlap.com, which is where all my shows are at. Or if you're on iTunes, if you can leave a 5-star review, that would be greatly appreciated. And leave a comment. Let us know what you did like or what you didn't like, or how can we actually improve on the show. All your input is greatly, greatly appreciated. And Christina, again, thank you for being on the show, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit kevinadunlap.com, facebook.com/kevinadunlap.author, and on Twitter @Kevin A. Dunlap. We'll catch you on the next episode of Life's Little Lessons.